If you have questions, concerns, and are just lost when it comes to planning for retirement, meet Steve Hoyle and Derrick Caldwell of the Hoyle Financial Group. And speaking of, Wall Street and all the things that go down there, there's an old saying that where they say, sell in May and go away. It also, it refers to the adage that investors should sell their stocks in May, go on summer vacation, live your life, and then come back and start over in November. I'm just wondering if that is even still a smart concept. Derrick?
Yeah, it's definitely outdated. I mean, it depends on your investment goals, but, you see a drop in customer, what they call customer sentiment, which is how everybody looks at the market, right? How they feel about it and everything. You see a drop off there a lot of times, but keep in mind, if you're long and you have a plan in place for your investments, and you're not trying to buy, sell, and have a super active portfolio, it's really not advantageous to do that because, people smarter than me, including a guy we'll hear from later in the show, Warren Buffett, tells you, not to try to time the market. Pick the investments that you want to go into, that you're long in, and make sure that you do the right thing when it comes to that. And that's where it comes with partnering with a professional there. And, most people will tell you no. It's not worth trying to time to get back into the market because most people miss the boat. There's a reason that you don't try to time the market there. And you run into capital gains issues when you do that a lot of times too. There's a lot to consider rather than just, sell and go on vacation, come back later and deal with it later, because a lot of times you lose out by doing that.
Well, I was just going to say you're going to lose out because you're going to miss opportunities, right? The market is anything but guaranteed. It's up, it's down, it's all around. You don't know when or what's going to happen. So you need to know your risk. How much risk are you taking in the market? How conservative are you being? And I think that also is something so important to look at because Derrick and Steve, you guys sit with individuals every single day that say, I'm super conservative. And then when you look at their portfolio, you go, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Just people don't understand how much risk they're taking on. Their broker or somebody at some firm said that they're balanced. Well, you're balanced to lose. I think the other thing is people buy these target date funds and they just don't work. I think target date funds were a gimmick in our industry that people are really messing up their retirement for the future. Don't you, Derrick?
Yeah, it's all automated. When you talk about target date funds, there's no personalized experience there. They don't take into account anything about your life or your risk preferences at all. It just is totally automated there. So I'm not a big fan of target date funds either, Steve. I think it either leaves a lot on the table because it's being too conservative, or it's being just entirely too aggressive, and you may not want to be. So there's a lot of factors to consider in there. So, first 5 callers, guys, give us a call. We're going to do a personalized portfolio review. We will look and see how you're allocated, what investment strategies you can utilize in retirement or even pre-retirement, and make sure you get a firm grasp of, hey, what am I actually invested in? Am I doing the right thing? So give us a call today. You can also go to retiretexasstyle.com. Click on, there's multiple portfolio links there where you can click on them, get a quick 15-minute call with me, and we can see if we can help you out and make those strategy changes that you need to better your retirement portfolio.
We all know the famous Warren Buffett, and he is, of course, very proud that his company pays its fair share of taxes. Here's what he recently told shareholders at the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting.
If we send in a check like we did last year, we send in over $5 billion to the U.S. federal government. And if 800 other companies had done the same thing, no other person in the United States would have had to pay a dime of federal taxes, whether income taxes. No Social Security taxes, no estate taxes. Now, it doesn't bother me in the least to write that check.
Well, a few things. I'm sure it doesn't bother him because he's a gazillionaire, but also It sounds pretty nice what he's talking about here, right? All these billionaires pay some taxes so we don't have to.
I think he's just a stand-up guy. It's interesting if you look at Warren Buffett. He lives his life that way. And lives in the same house he's lived in forever. I love what he taught his kids. He said, I'm not going to enable you. I think his story is just remarkable, Jess.
Yeah, Steve, I couldn't agree more. You're exactly right. He lives in the same house that he's always had. He could obviously build a mega mansion, but he lives in a really just decent small house. And he eats like the same McDonald's breakfast with a small cup of coffee every single day.
Yeah, and they said most days, unless he has a meeting, he takes a sack lunch, guys. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good example of, he's a billionaire, a great example of being, I wouldn't say thrifty, but not just extravagant, right? Just blowing, money left and right. And I have to agree a lot of times with how our corporate structure is set up is, it's a very tough financial decision the United States always has to make, because you have to lean on, okay, how do I get companies to stay in the U.S., and how do I make sure they don't leave? And, corporate tax structures are always balancing that. With what he's saying, it's, he mentioned fair share. And that's what it comes down to on a personal level for a lot of people. We don't mind paying our fair share, but we don't want to pay everyone's share. Right?
Exactly. Derrick, what I think so much when I think of Warren Buffett is I think about transparency. And I think the way he did his kids, just didn't make trust fund babies out of them. And I think we can use his lifestyle, his lessons with his family for our clients. So many people, we encourage them to bring their kids. Don't just die one day and leave all this money to them. Show them how you made the money. Show them the corners that you cut, what you did to be successful with money. And I think that generational wealth is so important. And that's what Buffett talks about. And I think that's what we do so often for our clients. After 35 years, we have clients that we have the parents, all the kids, and then the grandkids. This is crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. And when we talk about legacy planning, it doesn't matter if you have whatever Warren Buffett has, $300 billion or so, or if you have $300,000. Legacy planning is very important, and also how you structure that. With the recent changes, 2 years ago to how people inherited money, a lot of that has changed. Back in the day, Jess, we used to just, roll things over, and you could create your own IRA if your parents passed away, and it was all gravy, as I used to say. But now, with the structure changes, you have between 5 and 10 years to take all the tax burden out. So it's very important to plan that out. And just the other day, we created a plan for one of our clients that had a sizable inheritance, but it was all in pre-tax 401k and IRAs, guys. And I mean, his son was a very successful doctor here in the Panhandle. And so when we started to talk, he's like, well, I don't care. My son makes plenty of money. He can pay all the taxes, whenever it rolls out. And so we started to sit down. And I'm like, okay, so even though you don't care about the tax burden that you're placing on your kids, what about your money? And he kind of looks at me and he's like, well, what do you mean? My money's fine. I'm not taking out any more than I have to. I said, what if I told you right now the government was going to get 20% more of your money when you transition it to your son than if we do this plan and we slowly withdraw it out and do Roth conversions on it? That changes tune. Mm-hmm. He was going from, hey, my son has to pay it and it's my son's burden, to now it's, hey, the government's getting my money. Wait a minute. No. And that really affected him. Just that simple, terminology change really affected his mindset when it was, I don't care about what happens to it. My son will take care of it, to, hey, the government's getting more of my money. And that prompted him to act. And at that point, we started to put a legacy and plan in place and started doing Roth conversions and more withdrawals and funneling money to different parts of his portfolio. So he was in a much lower tax bracket. And we have a 10-year plan there to transition those funds out of his 401k and IRA into more tax-efficient vehicles for not only him right now, but his son later on. We're going to ensure that the government doesn't get a dime more than he has to.
But Derrick, I love the plan. I love the strategy. But what I think it's called awareness. We have so many people that don't know what they don't know. And they need to come to us and sit down and let's figure out what the taxes look like. You know, if the Trump tax package is not renewed in 2026, how that could affect you, your family, your kids for 4 generations. I mean, it's huge. The numbers never lie. And I think being informed about that, it all starts with just sitting down and crunching the numbers and, figuring out where you've been before you figure out where you want to go.
If folks want to come in and have this conversation, let's face it, guys, talking about taxes can be overwhelming and stressful in general. Then you mix that with, oh, by the way, my income plan for the rest of my life. Tell me, what is that first time appointment like?
So, yeah, when you come in, really the first step is to get to know you. Guys, it's a very non-pressure environment. We just want to get to know you, what kind of not only just investor you are, but what's important to you in life, what is important for your money to do for you. And that goes from your legacy to your income that you're taking off of your Social Security. All these different things is just to get a good picture of what kind of person you are and what's important to you. And that's the biggest thing I feel like for people is they just want to be heard and have a financial advisor that understands what's important to them. And, that's really the first meeting is just to go through that. And, in the second meeting, we talk about, okay, so these are the holes in your portfolio. These are the things that I see that you can improve upon. And honestly, Jess, sometimes it's just great to say, hey, you're doing fantastic, right? I mean, it's good to say that, but to have that second opinion and that second eye, because it definitely will kind of change your retirement by having that second opinion, and it just looking at the gaps in your retirement. What if this happens? What if this happens? We're not just financial advisors here. We're retirement planners. Our job does not stop at your portfolio and, hey, just grow funds. If you need to talk to an accountant, talk to them and things like that. No, we want to be very holistic and make sure that you have your wills, your power of attorneys. If you need a trust, we'll talk about that. Do you have an accountant? If you don't have an accountant, let's talk to you about one. You really have a need for an accountant. Things like that to really focus on your retirement. Make sure your money's working for you. Third meeting is generally, hey, you want to come on as a client? Do we want to, make a difference? Do we want to have a partnership together? And that's fantastic.
But Derrick, I think the gap that we're seeing so much is so many people that retired a few years ago have a plan in place, and they've planned for their retirement monies to be a stretch IRA, which means that all of a sudden the spouse has a lifetime exemption. It becomes their money, and then their kids, they think, will get income for the rest of their lives. But that rule changed a couple of years ago, and if you really need to know how that impacts you, your money, your future for the next 4 generations. So you need to talk to us today. The landscape has changed with taxes, and you need to make sure you're prepared for it. So call us today. Let's get busy and figure it out for you.
If you'd like to sit down with Steve and Derrick or a member of the Hoyle Financial Group, visit retiretexasstyle.com.
By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Steve Hoyle, Texas Insurance License 716036. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties. Steve Hoyle is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Steve Hoyle is licensed in your state, please call 806-371-9473.